Week 9 is in the books, so that means it's time to hit those waiver wires to find players that could add value to the back end of your rosters. And first and foremost, I want to highlight a couple of players that are already highly rostered, but not 100% that I think need to be, and that includes Taj Brooks, running back for the Cincinnati Bengals, Isaiah Davis, running back for the New York Jets, Devin Singletary, running back for the New York Giants, Darius Slayton, wide receiver for the New York Giants, Tez Johnson, wide receiver for the Buccaneers, and Demario Douglas, wide receiver for the New England Patriots. Again, all these guys are rostered in well over 90% of Dynasty leagues out there, but not exactly 100%. So double check your waiver wires and immediately add these guys if they are available. Now, we didn't have a ton of injuries this week during the games, but obviously the big injury news on the week was Travis Hunter going on IR with a non-contact knee injury. It's not an ACL injury, but there are questions about if Hunter will even return this season, but at the very least, he's out for 4 weeks. So in his place comes the duo of Parker Washington and Dyami Brown, who were already fairly productive this season when Travis Hunter was healthy, but now with the targets consolidated a bit, they could have flex appeal for the remaining bye weeks or injuries left during the season. Now, both guys are highly rostered already, and I'd imagine that most people picked these guys up after the Hunter news last week, but if they are still available in your league, they need to be added, especially Parker Washington. Dyami Brown left the game early this week with a concussion, but he had 3 receptions for 25 yards on 7 targets, which was second on the team in targets behind, of course, Parker Washington, because Trevor Lawrence hates Brian Thomas Jr. But on a team-high 9 targets this week, Washington had 8 receptions for 90 yards. He is a solid wide receiver and has enough usage to be a weekly wide receiver 3 or better, so he definitely needs to be added in all leagues if he's still available, and possibly even started in deeper leagues. Now, I said we didn't have a ton of injuries this week, but there was one big one with Tucker Kraft being feared to have torn his ACL against the Carolina Panthers, and if that is the case, Luke Musgrave could have a big role in the Packers offense as Tucker Kraft's replacement. He had 3 receptions for 34 yards this week, which is actually third on the team behind Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson in receiving yards. Now, I don't expect Musgrave to be an exact one-for-one replacement of Tucker Kraft. Kraft is just the better tight end, but he can absolutely be a weekly fantasy tight end 1, and you can never have enough options at tight end, especially if you don't have one of those top guys. So you have to add Luke Musgrave, who is still available in a decent number of Dynasty leagues out there. Add him this week as the rest of season potential top 12 tight end. Speaking of options at tight end, though, y'all remember Greg Dulcich? Well, apparently he's on the Miami Dolphins now and has taken over this tight end 1 role that has made Jonnu Smith and Darren Waller look nearly elite, and it's maybe going to do the same thing for Dulcich. He was third on the team in targets with 5, hauling in all 5 of those targets for 49 yards. He is by far the most available player in this video this week, and based on his usage on Thursday night, along with the historical usage of the tight end position for Miami over the past year or so, he absolutely needs to be added in every single league and potentially started if you don't have good options at the position. And lastly, and there's a reason he's last on this list because it is gross, and I am bracing for impact as I say this right now, it may not be a terrible idea to add Jake Browning if he was dropped in your league. The main 2 reasons being, number 1, Joe Flacco came into this week injured where it was serious enough that he wasn't sure if he could play, and they were using words like, he's going to give it a shot on Sunday. Now, he did finish the game, but he's been throwing the ball 50 times every single week, and he's an older dude. I mean, I get it. My shoulder would be shot immediately if I was throwing that many times every single week. And all it takes is one bad tackle where a 300-pound lineman falls on his shoulder with his whole entire weight, and he could be done for a few weeks, and then back in comes Jake Browning. And reason number 2, I get that Jake Browning did not look good at all this year, and there was a reason that the Bengals traded for Joe Flacco. But I'm also looking at the teams he played as a starter: at Minnesota, at Denver, and then at home against Detroit. In terms of fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position coming into this week 9, Minnesota ranked 10th, Denver was 3rd, and then Detroit was actually bottom 10, and Jake Browning did throw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns on them. Again, he isn't a very good quarterback, but we asked a not very good quarterback to travel on the road and face 2 of the hardest defenses in the entire NFL, and then the one subpar defense he faced, he produced for fantasy with over 22 points in 4-point touchdown leagues and 28 points in 6-point touchdown leagues. So then moving forward after a week 10 bye this week, since he has one of the easiest schedules at all positions remaining, with games against Pittsburgh, Miami, 2 games against Baltimore, all of whom are bottom 10 against quarterbacks right now, and then New England, Arizona, and Buffalo, who are difficult matchups, but at least 2 of those are at home. So all I'm saying is that Jake Browning could have the opportunity to be the starter again for Cincinnati against much better matchups than he had earlier this season. So if you've been riding Joe Flacco and you want a little bit of insurance, or you just have an extra roster spot in general and you want to stash someone, that someone could maybe be Jake Browning.